All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If everyone will rise, I'll ask Lieutenant Rockwell to lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much. We thank you for our San Juan County Commission. We pray, Father, that as the agenda is discussed today, as a current policy is that they will always put the people's interests above their. Remind them, Father, that they are in this position not to be served, but to serve the public. Just as Christ, who is King, came to be not be served, but to be served, but to serve, and ultimately die on the cross to save us. We also pray, Father, that they will uphold this moral action. Bless them, their families, and all the people of San Juan County serve richly. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Mr. Sawyer, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, ma'am.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So at this time on our agenda, we're going to go forward with the election of officers. So I'm going to start now. Are there any nominations for chair?
Madam Chair, I would nominate Commissioner Lanier for chair.
I second that nomination. So at this time, we have a first and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Then we'll go ahead and have nomination. I need motions for Chair Pro Tem.
Madam Chair, I nominate John Beckstead for Chairman Pro Tem.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first and second. Okay, are there any other nominations for Chair Pro Tem? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. So congratulations to Chair Lanier and Chair Pro Tem Beckstead.
Almost feel set up. And we'd like to present you with a gavel for your service. I hope well, I know I won't be anywhere near as elegant as you are at this job, but just our appreciation to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Now to the real stuff, huh? Consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, we just need approval of the agenda first.
Oh, yeah. Do we have anything to add to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, we just have one change tonight under new business item number 3. Instead of myself presenting that, Mr. Chris Rockwell will be presenting that item. That would be the only change staff's proposing tonight.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we can get to consent agenda. Consideration of approval of FY 23 budget adjustment number 8, resolution number 222340. And number 2, consideration of resolution number 222339, adoption requiring community development block grant, CDBG, annual certifications and commitments. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
all approved? Or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you. All right, new business. Number 1, consideration of the approval of resolution 2223. And this will be, who's doing this one? Oh,
Well, kind of.
Kim?
We also have
Kim.
Chris Garner joining us online.
All right, thank you, Kim.
Betcha. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. I come before you today to introduce our auditor, Chris Garner with Patillo, Brown and Hill. We received our release letter from the state auditor, and as per section 2.2.2 10M.4 NMAC audit rule, once the audit report is officially released to the agency by the state auditor, the auditor report shall be presented by the auditor to a quorum of the governing authority by the agency during a meeting held in coordinates with the Open Meetings Act. This will be an action item as the state requires a resolution. I also would like to take a moment to thank the elected offices and departments for all of their help to support during the audit process. I also want to thank my staff for all of their hard work in pulling the information together for our financials. And with that being said, I will now turn it over to Mr. Garner.
Can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I just did. Did
Okay,
it work?
there you go. Thank you. Yes.
Sorry about that. Somehow I lost the picture by putting up my screen, but hopefully everybody can see the presentation.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mike. What I have here is just a highlights from the exit conference that we had back in November, going over the required communication that we as auditors are to make to those that are charged with governance. So again, this is just highlights of that required communication that auditors are to make. And if anybody has any questions as I go through this presentation, please stop me and I'll do my best to answer anything. So the first communication I wanted to talk about is what's the results of the audit. So we issued what we call an unmodified opinion, but as you can see in brackets there, it's a clean opinion. And so what our report says in the financial statements that they are fairly presented in accordance with the standards that we have to follow. So in essence, this is the highest level of assurance that we as auditors can give. And so this is exactly the type of report that the county wants to receive. So we did give a clean opinion on your financial statements for FY22. The next slide is talking about there's two other reports in the financial statements that we are required to include. The report on the left is more commonly referred to as a yellow book audit. So in a yellow book audit, the New Mexico State Auditor actually requires us to do this in all audits in our state, and it requires us to test internal controls more than just regular auditing standards. And also the state audit rule requires us to test additional items such as procurement, travel, things that the yellow book doesn't necessarily require. And there's about 15 other items that we potentially could have to test. In that report, we are just stating how we're testing internal controls above what regular auditing standards require. And then we have to talk about the results of our testing. And even with the expanded testing based upon the state audit rule, as you can see there, we did not have any exceptions. There was no findings during that testing that we noted. And so what happens with that report is it just spells out what we did and the fact that there were no findings. The slide on the right, or the box on the right, talks about what's more commonly referred to as a single audit. So the county spends more than $750,000 of federal funds. We have to do a compliance audit over those federal grants. And as you can see in the brackets there, we had housing and cares that we had to test this year. And based upon our testing, we are issuing an opinion on that. And we're giving, again, the same type of opinion that we gave on your financial statements, an unmodified or a clean opinion. So in that report, we could potentially have findings related to that compliance testing, and we didn't have any findings. And additionally, we're given the highest level of assurance. So both opinions that we are issuing this year, and the county's used to getting clean opinions. So both are the highest level of assurance that we can give as your auditors and exactly the type of reports that the county wants to receive. The next required communication is difficulties encountered in performing the audit. And really the reason the standards want us to talk about this is just to let the commission know, how are your records being maintained? So if we as auditors come in and we're having a hard time receiving documentation, or, there's problems that we encountered in the audit, we have to let you know. And we did not have any difficulties in performing the audit. When we asked for support, it was given to us timely. It was given to us in good order. And what, again, this is trying to communicate is letting the commission know that your records are being maintained well, and that your staff is able to give us that supporting documentation for the transactions that we tested. So really, the main purpose is just to let you know that your records are being maintained well. This next required communication that we'll go over is talking about audit adjustments. And, in New Mexico, we have 3 different methodologies of accounting that your finance department is responsible for maintaining records on. In New Mexico, you are establishing a budget on a cash basis of accounting. That's how you report to DFA throughout the year. And so that's really how you maintain your records. When audit time comes, we have to have 2 different methodologies of accounting that have to be included. So there's modified accrual and full accrual. And again, it's your responsibility to take your numbers, how you maintain them throughout the year, and convert them to those two other methodologies of accounting. And so we as auditors could come in and have adjustments and change numbers. And again, the whole reason for this communication is to let the commission know, how are your financial records being maintained? And as you can see, we did not have a single adjustment on any of the methodologies of accounting. But more importantly, I think to the commission is how are your cash basis, how you're monitoring your budget, how you're reporting to the state on a quarterly basis, how are those records? And we did not have a single adjustment. And so what that really tells the commission is that the numbers that are getting reported to you as you're making financial decisions throughout the year, you should feel confident in those numbers and knowing that you have a good internal control structure and your accounting records are being well maintained, and that those reports that are given to you, we did not have a single adjustment on any of those numbers. So again, I think what that tells the commission is that you should feel confident in those financial numbers as you are making decisions throughout the year. The last required communication is just talking about findings. And during the audit for last year and this year, even with the expanded testing that we have to do based upon the state audit rule, when I talked about the yellow book earlier, even with those expanded controls that we have to look at, we did not have any exceptions. And so again, I think this should give the commission confidence that your staff is following the policies and procedures that have been adopted by the county and also approved by the commission and by management, and that they are following the procedures as outlined in those policies. And so again, there's lots of transactions that go through your systems. There could be once in a while, you could have something slip through the cracks, but based upon our testing the last 2 years, even with that expanded testing, we did not have any exceptions. So there were no findings in your financial statements for FY22. The next two slides are going over what is now commonly referred to as an ACFR. So your financial statements that the county puts together actually includes more information than what the state of New Mexico requires. And so there is the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, has a program where you can submit your audit to them to make sure that you're meeting the standards of an ACFR and that you have all the required information in there. And so what happens is there's a lot more statistical information. Actually, there's a lot more information in your financial statements that has to be put together so that the readers of the financial statements have more information than what's required by the state of New Mexico. And so as you go through and submit or put your report together, you submit it to GFOA, and they give an annual award out. This year is the 16th consecutive year that the county has received this award. And as you can see in that second bullet, You're only one of 18 New Mexico governments that receive this award in the state. So 2021 is the most recent information. When I looked up this information during the exit, there was only 14, but I did check it again today, and there are 4 additional entities that were included. And so the county, again, is only 1 out of 18, and there's over 700 governments in the state of New Mexico. Not a lot of people are willing to go through and put together that additional information, because it does add quite a few statements, quite a few schedules that are included in your financial statements that aren't required. And so it does take a bit of work. So again, there's not a lot of participation in our state. And this is really something that the county should really be proud of, because not everybody is willing to give that additional information and make your financial statements more more useful to those readers of the financial statements. And as you can see in that last slide, you're one of only 4 of the 33 counties that received the award in 2021. And so again, not everybody is willing to step up and take the time to put together a complete ACFR. And so again, that's something that the county really should be proud of. The last few slides I have are just financial highlights. So I talked a little bit earlier about 3 different methodologies of accounting. The full accrual is where long-term assets such as buildings, equipment, and long-term liabilities like debt, your portion of the unfunded amount of the retiree healthcare and para, those are included as liabilities on this particular set of financial statements. This is the only time you see it is during the audit. What happens is all the funds of the entire county are pushed together with those long-term assets and long-term liabilities. At the end of the year, you ended up with 310 million of assets, 165 million in liabilities, giving you a net position, or more commonly referred to as equity, your equity of 145 million. So again, on the full accrual, those are the numbers. That's not really how you operate throughout the year. You operate, again, monitoring the budget on a different basis of accounting. But one of the more important funds in the county is the general fund. And so I've got a few slides just going over the general fund as of June 30th, 2022. And so as you can see, the general fund's assets have increased. They've gone from 36.7 million up to 50.3 million. Your liabilities have increased a little bit too, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few slides. But your fund balance in the general fund has gone up from 31 million to 41.7 million. So you'll see a positive trend there. And we'll go through specifics of what the assets and liabilities are here in just a second. The next slide is showing that the composition of that $50 million in assets. The majority of your assets are in cash and investments. It's 33.7 million. The next biggest amount of assets are your accounts receivable of 13.6 million. And then you have 1.6 million in prepaids and 1.4 million in inventory. And as you could see in the bottom there, really the assets did increase quite a bit, about $20 million. The biggest component of that relates to an increase of $9 million in cash to that 33.7. So during the current year, the county was able to increase your cash amounts by $9 million. The 33.7 does have about $1 million of restricted cash in the general fund, but the rest is unrestricted. The other increase is related to the accounts receivable. So during the current year, your accounts receivable increased approximately 4.8 million. The majority of that increase relates to a new standard that had to be implemented. So the county has leases with various people where you're leasing out like airport, I'm going blank with sorry, I just went blank, but you have your airport leases where and different leases you also have with the track. And so what happened this year is those in the general fund had to be reported in the modified accrual. But you're going to see we have a $3.8 million lease receivable. But we're also going to have a liability that correlates to that. So really your accounts receivable stayed fairly consistent other than the implementation of this new accounting standard. We're going to go to liabilities. And again, this is the general fund liabilities. And as you'll see at the very bottom, the liabilities really did remain fairly consistent between the 2 years. The only really change is with those assets that we have to show for leases that are owed to the county. We also have a corresponding, what we call a deferred revenue. So there's $3.8 million, same amount as the asset that we now have to show as a liability. And so what happens is again, it really doesn't have any effect. It just kind of grosses up your assets and your liabilities. But other than that, if once you take away that 3.8 million, your liabilities really remain fairly consistent between the 2 years. We look at general fund revenues. The general fund revenues have gone up significantly. Revenues increased by about 14 million in FY22. It was just about $89 million compared to 75 million in the prior year. And the biggest reason is for an increase in your taxes of $13 million. The GRT went up about 11 million, and you had $1.6 million increase in gas taxes. So overall, the revenues increased in the general fund. Expenses remained fairly consistent between the 2 years, 48.4 million in 2021 compared to 51.4 million. The biggest change is really public safety. And what happened was in the prior year in FY21, your public safety wages, you were able to transfer part of those to a grant fund. This year that did not happen. So that increase really is just not an overall for the county, an increase in public safety wages, but it's just where it was charged to. So in FY22, those amounts were again charged to the general fund because that grant fund, you didn't have to transfer it over during the current year. And so all of the expenses in FY22 were charged to the general fund. With that, I'll open up to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I would just like to thank you for the communications that you keep with us. And I think this is the third meeting I've been in with you, and you make it simple so we can kind of follow along, and I appreciate that. And of course, Ms. Martin, you and your office do such a great job, along with really all the departments, I think do a great job. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, if I could, just to reiterate, I know Ms. Martin mentioned it's a team effort, and it truly is. It takes everyone rowing the boat in the same direction to receive. I believe, Chris, this is 3 years in a row of no findings, correct? It's not just the last two?
I believe you're right.
And that's very, very unusual statewide. I know you could probably speak to that with some of your other clients, and but it takes everyone working together, the policies and procedures, and some nagging occasionally from the finance office. But I want everybody to know, all 600 employees at San Juan County, when we do it the right way, look at the results we get. And this is for the citizens of San Juan County. Ultimately they're going to have a strong confidence in the use of public funds and the reporting of those funds. And that's ultimately what tonight's is showing to the citizens of San Juan County. So thank you to everybody you mentioned, and including yourself, and as well as Mr. Cox in the back there, who's deputy county manager, but served as CFO for a number of years and passed a great operation and torch on to Kim. So truly a team effort. Thank you.
Yeah. And then just a reminder, this is an action item for the resolution that we'll have to send to the state. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion or any more comments?
Motion to approve resolution number 22-23-41.
I would second that.
Oh, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry. It's,
We're about, just took care of the city of Farmington's,
yeah. I was looking up Farmington.
it's like, yeah.
Okay, motion to approve resolution number 22-23-42.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Or any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so that moves us to the city of Farmington. Next on the agenda, Mayor Nate Duckett's going to present something very important and dear to us.
Very much so. Well, thank you, Honorable Chair, Commission. It's great to see everybody this evening. Congratulations on a certificate of excellence on your GFOA. That's fantastic news. I know as a citizen of San Juan County, I appreciate the fact that we have governments that are accountable. And I think that's what we're all looking for, and making sure that we're spending tax dollars in the most efficient way possible. And just appreciate the work that you all do, as well as your staffs. I brought with me tonight City Manager Rob Mays and Farmington Electric Utility Director Hank Adair. So if there's any in-depth questions that you need answered regarding the resolution that we're asking for your support on tonight, please let me know. This resolution, I'm just reading this headline here, supporting legislation for cost recovery for Farmington Electric Utility System from the loss of San Juan Generating Station in order to lower electricity costs of the citizens of Northwest New Mexico and shield them from the rate shock associated with volatile energy market pricing. As you know, we've spent 4 years in a fight to sustain the operations at San Juan Generating Station, a fight that we were all very passionate about, and certainly Mr. Mays and Mr. Adair, as well as other staff, have worked diligently on up until a point last month when we had to make a determined decision that, based on an arbitrator's 3-0 decision that allowed PNM to auction off valuable and important components of that generating station, that we could not recoup that cost. And so we have withdrawn our continued efforts. That being said, we had 43 megawatts of power being produced out of that generating station. Those 43 megawatts are going to have to be made up for. Within the Energy Transition Act that was passed at the state in 2019, PNM was allotted some significant amounts of dollars to support them and their organization as they transitioned according to the state's new law. Unfortunately, there were no accommodations made to our electric utility, which, as you know, serves 1,700 square miles of electric utility users here in San Juan County. Our most recent integrated resource plan that we have worked up showed that in the event that San Juan Generating Station closed, there would be a need for approximately 90 new megawatts of power to be added at a cost today that we could say is 150 million, but probably more than that as we get further down the road. But more immediately, we needed to replace 18 megawatts. And so we have a shovel-ready project that we're working on the permitting on. We have a location at our Bluffview plant property to place an 18 megawatt reciprocating engine. And we are asking our state legislative group, for which we will meet with tomorrow, to formulate a plan to take to Santa Fe to support our ratepayers. So this resolution breaks down some of that cost and what that ask is. But this 18 megawatts is really just the first of those 90 megawatts we recognize we will need in the long term. We believe that those individuals who made the decision to pass the ETA at the state level should have some accountability to the ratepayers of Farmington Utility to support them and not put this exorbitant rate increase, which, if we don't receive the dollars that we're asking for here, it will be on all of us as ratepayers to pay for that new generation. It's important to understand as well, and we just did a recent mayor's table with Hank just prior to the new year, addressing what the future of electricity looks like here in our area and where those costs are going to be associated in dealing with buying power off the grid. There is a high demand for power, regardless of the number of power plants that they've taken offline. People still want to energize their home, and now, of course, plug in their automobiles and everything else that's associated with that demand. So while demand is up, supply is down. So we're asking our group to go to Santa Fe and to fight for us again, in the hopes of recouping $23 million of unappreciated assets that are in the power plant right now. That is money that's already been spent by our ratepayers. It is debt-free, but we have not received anything back from the state in regards to those dollars, and then the $40 million associated with the building of a new 18 megawatt natural gas power plant. So we're asking you, as well as our other municipal peers here, to support us in this effort. That is what tonight's resolution is about. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Mayor Duckett, does your ask correlate to what P and M got? As far as the benefits that they got from the ETA? Is yours out of line, or is it right in line with what P and M got?
We feel like it's very in line. What P and M got is far beyond what we're asking for in this regard. So we feel definitely that there should be considerations made. And when the state has $3.5 billion of surplus, as they keep touting, then there's certainly opportunity there to support the 1,700 square miles of New Mexicans that would find this to be very valuable. And to be very clear, these dollars go directly into the generation asset. So it is directly to ratepayers. There's nothing coming off the top for anybody, for anything other than to ensure those ratepayers are kept, rates are kept as low as possible.
Anybody else? Do you have any idea what P and M may do with some of the equipment they're trying to auction off? Are they trying to keep some foothold here in San Juan County, or are they?
That's probably a good question for Hank. My initial take on that is that they're, they have the land,
Right.
they have the transmission, but as far as these big components go, these are high dollar components that frankly, right now, the lead time to get some of these new, it's years. So they're going to go in and gut that. And of course, according to your ordinance that you all have passed in regards to reclamation, they will be working diligently on that end,
Right.
as well as with the other owners.
Are they going to keep any here that like utility lines? Are they going to try to keep any sort of equipment here? Or are they going to auction it all off?
I'll have Hank come up and, I'm sure they're going to have to keep some. And if you recall in the ETA, they did agree to build replacement power here in San Juan County. We've yet to see them break
Right.
ground on anything like that, but I'll let Hank go.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon. So
State your name first, please.
my name is Hank Adair. I'm the Utility Director for the Farmington Electric Utility System. So what the auctioned off items are related to the generation facility, and P&M has said they do not want to keep any of that. So that is being entirely auctioned off just for pure sale. Those sales are to offset the decommissioning costs of the facility. So it's an offset of revenue to offset costs, if you will. Related to the facility itself, Tucson Electric and Public Service New Mexico have the transmission lines and specifically the substation, and that substation will remain in place. So the wires remain intact, just the generating facility will be decommissioned.
All right, thank you.
I have a question, Mr.
Yes,
Chair. It may be for Mayor. If this doesn't happen, then what would be the cost passed on to the ratepayers? How much would they look at?
Well, they killed it.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, the dollars we've estimated from our cost of service study were 6 to 8% early in this year in the March, April timeframe. Since that timeframe, our average purchase power costs on the market were historically about $40 a megawatt hour. Today, we purchased yesterday at $108 a megawatt hour. So you could fully expect those to be near double or even more so.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to add that we appreciate the fight that you guys have put up. Mr. Mays, I know you put your heart and soul into it. And unfortunately, it just is not going to pan out, but I recommend that we support you any way that we possibly can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just mention how much the city of Farmington appreciates the support of San Juan County. We are in a unique situation here in the northwest corner of the state where local governments get along. We have great respect for one another, and I think we share a priority of giving back and making sure we're taking care of our community. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Mayor Duckett, I'm just trying to remember back to when the ETA was passed. How did you guys get left out of any return or consideration. I know it was highly political. I recall that. I can't remember if Farmington was purposely left out or just overlooked.
You know, as I recall, the ask came in for what can we do for you kind of thing. And it more dealt with the workforce component as opposed to our utility. Now, I think part of that had to do with the fact that we were striving to keep that facility open. So I'm sure that played partially into that at that moment.
We do appreciate all the efforts that were made, and you know, it's unfortunate how it turned out.
It is. All right. Any others?
I'd like to make a motion to consider the approval of resolution number 222341.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion will carry.
Chair, Commission, thank you very much. You'll have a great evening.
Thank you for coming in person. Means a lot. All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. So number 3, consideration of resolution 222338, recognition of the Salvation Army contributions to San Juan County. This will be Chris Rockwell.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable County Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here all in front of you today. Where do I begin? Many people don't quite understand how the Salvation Army serves in a city or in a county setting. Well, I'm going to clear that up today, number one, with this PowerPoint that I created. And it talks about the A, B's, and C's. And also afterwards, I'm going to give my personal thoughts and share with you, because I've just got to say, it's like Mayor Duckett was talking about, of course, on a completely different subject, but he talked about the fighting spirit of San Juan County. He talked about the community, governments getting along. And, you know, I grew up in Los Angeles, and I was unheard of back then because there was always tribes and different groups. It's not the case here. The case here is something that has been so incredible and inspiring for me as a commander here in San Juan County that it's hard to even put into words. But allow me to go through the presentation. If you go to the next slide, the mission statement of the Salvation Army as it stands, it's an international movement because we're all over the globe. It's an evangelical part of the Universal Christian Church. It's an offshoot of Methodism. William Booth, who started it in London, was a Methodist pastor. And the message is based on the Bible. Our ministry is motivated by the love of God. Its mission is to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and meet human needs in his name without discrimination. That means every single person who comes to my door, we don't ask, what race are you? We don't ask what creed you are. We don't ask what religion you take a position on. All we ask is, how may we help you? And that's it. Of course, they want us to pray for them, we do. But that's right there. How may we help you? And if we go to the next slide here, right here, the San Juan Core Vision Statement. And this is a vision statement that I've been praying on, merging it with our Army vision statement, but also the vision of our commanders who are in Phoenix. Phoenix is the Southwest Command Center, and Farmington is obviously a representative of our area in the Southwest Command. But anyway, care for all walks of life are welcome, appreciated, and cared for in ways affirming God-given values. So everybody has the opportunity to succeed. We want to be an innovative partner mobilized to share hope in hardship, building relationships as Jesus modeled in Scripture. In other words, we're not just here to give you, here you go, handout, here you go, handout. We want to, sure, give you the handout, but we call it a hand up because we want to do more than that. We want to follow through and see basic needs are being met, that individuals have a place to go if they're in trouble, or they have a place, somebody that could help them along with us coming alongside to get them to be fully functioning individuals in our county. And is that easy to do? No. But with the Lord propelling us, we're not doing too bad here. And that's a good thing. The next slide. How we meet local needs. You can go to the next one. So this is how it's done in our case management with myself and my assistants, Deacon Dean and Jennifer Reeves. First, we need to assess the need of each community in which we serve. We work to understand the obstacles, hardship, challenges native to the particular population. For example, and this has been challenging, like the First Nations community. That's my passion. I want to be reaching out to them because I come from a recovery background of drug and alcoholism, and we see that constantly. How can we not just help them in the moment? How can we help them long term? And working together with different nonprofits and the city leaders in Farmington, and of course all of you, our county leaders as well, to make things better and more long term and more prosperous. That's the challenge in doing that, and doing it not just, like I said, momentarily, but doing follow-up. Next slide, please. Building local programs designed to offer immediate relief, short-term care, long-term growth, areas that would be best benefit the community we serve, best benefit the county we serve. We have, my ministry, as I just mentioned, is from a recovery background. And when the Lord sent me to Farmington, because I didn't know until I got up on the stage there where they give you your ordained and commissioned, say, hey, you're going to Farmington. Well, I looked it up and I said, hey, and I don't know why I thought of John Wayne movies. I thought of the Old West. I thought of all of that. And it actually kind of like, hey, this is pretty cool. But you understand the needs when you're there. I immediately saw there is a need for a drug and alcohol ministry there. There is a need for individuals who need shelter. There's a need for individuals who need care, not just recovery care, but mental health and mental wellness. That all to me you start spiritual wellness, mental wellness, physical wellness, everything just comes together. And we're doing our best to be intentional for that. And because we want to just stand out for the Salvation Army here in San Juan County, not because, oh, look at what we're doing. It's about making a difference. And that's what the Army did for me when I joined them in 2014. I was on the gutter and somebody God used to reach their hand out. I grabbed it right back. Same thing here. Next. Local programs such as Celebrate Recovery that we do. We do our ministry. We have a Celebrate Recovery ministry. We have our Sunday ministry. It's been hard because COVID wiped out the core, the congregation. So we're kind of having to reestablish that. But praise God for the people of this county because their hearts give. And that has allowed us to be sustainable without the congregation. Doesn't mean we throw that out. Hey, we don't need that. Oh, absolutely, we do. And so we're praying and working on that diligently. And then the next slide there, right here, San Juan core vision statement. Celebrate God's presence through worship, demonstrate God's love through ministry and service, communicate God's word through evangelism and outreach, assimilate God's family, because we all are, through fellowship, and educate God's people through discipleship. All of that right there is what I live by each day as I serve here in this county. And quite honestly, it's so inspiring to see the response. When our van was stolen last year, this county came out like you wouldn't believe. And it was like, whoa, it blew me away because in California, I don't know if that would have been even possible. But here, hearts are afire to help neighbors. To do, like Mayor Duckett said, there's that fighting spirit and the spirit of community. Right there. It's right there. And let me show you some numbers here. People assisted, this is what we've done in a 5-year support. Hold on a moment. Thank you. This is because of the investment the individuals here in this county have made to the Salvation Army here in Farmington, San Juan County. This is the impact we've had over 5 years. We've assisted 86,561 individuals. We've served 18,288 meals. We've provided 11,614 emergency food boxes. I think that went up by 3 or 4 today, right? And then the clothing items distributed. With the thrift store gone, that is now a clothing bank that we have. We're eventually wanting to put it as a one-stop shop family service center where we're doing more than clothing. We're meeting basic medical needs. We can do laundry, showers for the homeless in that area, but also just having low-income families come into our door knowing they have hope. There's a variety of different dimensions to meet that hope. And now with the clothing bank, we're serving the nonprofits, all 4 school districts, Kirtland, Farmington, Aztec, and Bloomfield, getting clothes for children and families who are in need of clothing. And then the people assisted with rent and utilities, 1503. Now that's going off because when I arrived here, something had happened with the government funding with our Corps. I don't know what it was, but we could not get the funds to do the rental assistance and utility assistance. And I'll be darned, I'm just like, the fighting spirit of this area just went right into me, and I fought and I fought and I fought, and we finally got it restored. Thank you, God. And so the only thing I can add on top of this, if you go to the next slide, is thank you. Thank you, all of you, every one of you, because of your love, because of your generosity, because of your sense of community and the fighting spirit that has made this assignment for me. This is my first, but it has made me just cemented. I love it here. And they say New Mexico is the land of enchantment. It absolutely is, but San Juan County is more enchanting than what I've ever been around in my time with the Salvation Army. And I want to give you guys deep thanks, because on Christmas, when we were helping, seeing little kids get their gifts, seeing families saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, makes all the difference. And I can't even put that into words, so I'm not going to try. But thank you all for everything. I love all of you, and I just appreciate you all, because a ministry that's motivated with that spirit can do amazing things, and we are one day at a time. So if anybody has any questions.
Well, thank you very much for your leadership, Commander, and taking care of those souls that need to be taken care of, your ministries. I know Ms. Fortner's worked close with you, and I'm sure she has.
Yeah, I'd have something to say when you're done.
No, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay. I just want to say thank you, Lieutenant Rockwell, for being here. I hope that you'd come and just so we can spread the word of what you do, because one of our conversations had to do revolving around our mental wellness resource center and why there's a facility in Albuquerque that individuals can go to for recovery, and how we can do something like that here. And I think by your attention to detail and by your presence, your enthusiasm, and just that sustainability and stability, I want to lend credibility, validity to what you do, because I've seen you in action and I appreciate that. So whatever we can do to let whoever would move you away know that we want you to stay. So whatever it takes, I appreciate your strategic planning and just being able to do these things you talked about in order for our community members to be able to get the assistance they need.
That's what it takes. It takes having a vision, but people believing in that vision. And that doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. I've already said to my commanders that they've asked me about staying here, and I said, I'm going to stay here as long as you'll let me, and the good Lord will keep me. And so that's my goal, my plan, and one day at a time. So thank you, Commissioner Fortner, so very much. Thank you all so very much, because we got a lot of work to do, but when we have the fighting spirit, the community spirit, and togetherness, where there's a will, God will make a way. He always does.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
You guys do the bell ringers during the
Yes, ma'am.
Christmas. I remember in
Yes, Commissioner.
1994 we were supposed to help a nonprofit and I was a bell ringer and I helped out. But that was a long time ago.
That's what
And I think,
hey, thank you, Commissioner, because we actually built up a good volunteer base. We're gonna keep that going, of course, but if we get enough volunteers and they're doing the work that we need to do every day, and I can somewhat slip away, I'm gonna be in my hat on and ringing. I don't know where, but somewhere, because you feel so nice when you see the people coming up, putting money in the kettle, knowing that money stays here in San Juan County. Doesn't go anywhere else, right here.
I had a question. Sometimes in the mail, I get, it says Salvation Army from Prescott.
Mhm,
Then I see your address over here.
mhm.
So is it better to send it to your address?
Yeah. that way-
Okay.
And when people write their checks, they can put Farmington in the memo line. If they write it directly to us, that's what it's gonna be. But if you want a little extra insurance, just go ahead and put Farmington.
Okay.
But I look at all the money as it comes in, and I look at that, and I'm making sure that what was done in the mail lines up with what's on the ledger.
Okay.
And so far, so good.
Uh,
So amen to that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for helping people. I know it's your job, but it's evident that you have a passion for it, and that certainly makes a difference, so thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, somebody reached out to me. God used them. And that's what I want to do here as much as possible, because we're all in this together here in San Juan County.
Well, thank you. Right, this is an action item.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve resolution number 22-23-38.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, you're fine right there. Thank you very much. Motion carries. All right, number 4. Consideration of approval of amendment number 1 to cooperative agreement with NMDOT for design of Pinion Hills Boulevard Extension.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nick Burrell.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year. So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, before you for your consideration, as Chairman Lanier said, is an amendment to our existing cooperative agreement with New Mexico DOT for the Pinion Hills Extension Project. You may recall that I think it was about this time last year, we submitted an application for congressionally directed spending for $1.25 million to support the right-of-way acquisition effort associated with the project. We were fortunate to receive that award. Those funds were programmed in federal fiscal year 2023, so that those funds weren't available to us until October of this year. As is typical, it took DOT 3 months to generate the amendment to our agreement. That is before you for signature by our chair. And it's $1.25 million with the standard required 14.56 local match, 14.56% local match, which totals $213,000 and change. I'd request your signature of the agreement so we can proceed with our right-of-way work. It is a fairly long lead item. I suspect we'll be working on right-of-way efforts for probably the next 12 months. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions? I think we're pretty briefed at this point. All right. I'll stand for a motion.
Move that we approve the amendment of amendment number 1 to cooperative agreement with New Mexico DOT.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate it. Consideration of adoption of ordinance number 123, repealing ordinance number 70, which establishes the San Juan County Amateur Radio Emergency Communications Team. Mr. Sawyer.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, in 2009, the Commission adopted ordinance number 70, which established the Amateur Radio Emergency Communications Team. The MCOM ham radio team has been serving the citizens of San Juan County for over 15 years under the direction of the emergency manager to be called upon in the event of a communications emergency. Due to improvements in technology, including the recent purchase of a deployable cell tower, which has the ability to generate area cellular, satellite, and Wi-Fi anytime, anywhere, the emergency manager has determined that the service of the INCOM team is no longer needed. the recent resignation of the MCOM team leader, the emergency manager believes this is the appropriate time to repeal ordinance number 70 and recommends that the commission do so. A notice of intent to adopt was approved by the commission at the December 6th meeting, and the notice was published on Sunday, December 11th in the Farmington Daily Times. So staff recommends that the commission adopt ordinance number 123, repealing ordinance number 70. And emergency manager Mike Mestis is here in the audience if you have any questions about the team.
Anyone have any questions? All right. I'll
The
stand for-
hearing was already held? Or do we have to have a hearing?
You know, that's a good point. Thank you so much for saving me, Commissioner Beckstead. We do need to have a quick hearing. If there's anyone present who'd like to comment on repeal of the ordinance.
Okay, yeah, we'll open for any comments from anyone. All right, not seeing any. We shall move on.
Okay,
Step for
so
motion.
take motion. I move that we adopt the ordinance number 123, repealing ordinances number 70.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. You're up again with open meetings, resolution 2022-23, 35.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. The Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15(1)D requires that a public body determine annually what notice for a public meeting is reasonable when applied to that body. So a draft resolution for calendar year 2023 is attached. And it's pretty much the same resolution as last year, and it's pretty similar to the one that we adopt every year.
Anything to add? All right, I like moving through this. All right, I'll stand for motion.
I would move that we adopt the open meetings resolution number 22-23-35.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And now to the last. Consideration of resolution 22-23-32, canceling and rescheduling certain meetings in calendar year 2023. Mr. Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. With your approval of the previous item, keeping the calendar for regularly scheduled meetings, the first and third Tuesday of the month at 4 o'clock. We like to look ahead at this first meeting in January and review the entire schedule with known conflicts or adjustments that we would usually bring to you during the normal course of the year. And so I wanted to do that tonight. And so the very first conflict we have is with the second meeting in January. The New Mexico Association of Counties Legislative Conference falls that week, and I know a number of you will be attending that in Santa Fe. And so we'd like to recommend moving that meeting to January 31st. And then subsequently canceling, because of the proximity, the first meeting in February. So that would move the meeting second meeting in January to the 31st, cancel the February 7th meeting. And then you can see a detailed list of these changes within the resolution. So a budget workshop is normally scheduled in between the first and second meeting of May. And so checked with Ms. Martin and the finance department, and they're suggesting that May 9th would be a good date for them. We want to make sure it's a good date for you, of course. That's normally a budget workshop that lasts 2 to 3 hours. We normally do that over the lunch hour from say 11:30 to 2:30. And so that's what we'd be, May 9th. It's a Tuesday.
I have a New Mexico County Executive Committee. It'll be virtual, and I don't know how long that will last.
Okay.
During the legislative session, so I may have to step out.
And that's in May?
That's in March.
Okay, this would be May.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, sorry.
Okay, you're right. You're fine.
Commissioner. So yeah, May 9th. Then the second meeting in May we need time to gather up the changes to the preliminary budget that's presented to you and allow for the most time possible to allow for submission to DFA, the interim budget. And so we would suggest moving the second meeting in May to May 23rd. It's a Tuesday at 4 o'clock so that we could do that as well. The first meeting in July, we're suggesting we cancel because it falls on the 4th of July holiday. And so we would be proposing just one meeting, which we're suggesting be rescheduled to July 25th. That moves the budget or moves us to a position where the budget can be considered as close as possible for submission of the final budget. And then because of the proximity to the meeting on July 25th, we would suggest canceling the first meeting in August. That's something we've historically done as well. So we can stand for any questions or any changes you might like to see to that. Those are just staff's recommendations on adjustments we know we would be bringing to you at a future meeting. We thought we'd just collectively get that all done in one fell swoop here.
I don't have any questions. I don't either. It looks fine to me.
Okay.
If anybody has anything else.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
motion to adopt resolution number 222332.
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion will carry. All right, so being we are down to the county manager, I would like to take a second to welcome Gary McDaniel, new commissioner, and very excited to work with you. And
Thank you.
and not all meetings are going to be this disorganized from the chair, I hope.
Fine.
But I would just like to personally welcome you and
Thank you. Appreciate that.
hope we don't disappoint you.
Nope.
All right.
That's all I had. All right, can I just had a couple items for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission, just annually, with the start of a new year, we take up and do a review of boards and committees. And so I've got a list of the current assignments in front of you with your approval of the previous resolution. And our next meeting would be on July 31st. July. How about January 31st? Wouldn't that be nice if we're not now? Technically, by law, I think we're only required to have a meeting order, but we can do this more frequently. Because there's lots of business. So anyway, we would like to bring this to you for consideration. So just if you had any changes, I know some of you are noted in a couple different spots. If you are not interested in continuing to serve, if you could independently let me know, I'd appreciate that. And we'll try to bring a list to you next meeting where we can adopt boards and committee assignments for next year. Related to the item that the city of Farmington presented tonight and reference our decommissioning ordinance, San Juan County is in receipt of a decommissioning plan from P&M, Public Service Company of New Mexico. Their decommissioning plan was prepared by Burns and McDonald. They did meet the requirements of our ordinance. They were required to submit such a plan 90 days after closure of the plant, assuming there were no reuse opportunities, and given that the city of Farmington has decided to withdraw their legal challenge of continuing operation of the plant, we will move forward with this plan. We have an engineering firm that will be assisting us with that endeavor, Mountain West Consulting. We went through a request for proposals that you all awarded back a few months ago, and they'll be reviewing that plan on our behalf to make sure that the plan that's been submitted meets the requirements of the ordinance. In some preliminary conversations with P&M representatives, they're indicating that this decommissioning project, they're hopeful that it would be about a 2-year project. Could go longer. I do know they have some on-site retention ponds that will need to remain in place a little longer. In addition to keeping all the equipment, or not equipment, but substations and other equipment that may be necessary for allowing for projects such as the Desiree solar project that's being located northeast of the project to connect to it and to ultimately the western grid. So all of those assets, and just in the preliminary review of their plan, are being protected as such. I just want to make you aware that we have received the plan and we'll be evaluating that within the time requirements within the ordinance. And with that, I can stand for any questions you might have.
No questions? All right, we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to reports from elected officials and department heads. Who's jumping up? We'll take
Would this be an appropriate time to ask for the commemorative bridge update? I'll save it for a few meetings down the road. I'll save it.
I'm sure Mr. Perrell would be happy to give you one if you'd like.
I'm gonna carry on that torch.
Okay.
We're all aware.
We'll start a new bridge.
That's all I had.
All right.
Real important.
Comments and input from the general public. Comments are accepted in person, limited to 3 minutes, and to subjects the commission has not previously discussed or formal action, no formal action has been taken on. No formal action will be taken at this meeting that relates to the comments or the input from the general public. Yes, Chris. It's a pleasure to see you.
Well, thank you, commissioners. I actually have two things. One, I'm
State
going to
your
probably
name
cheat
first.
on my name is Chris Hunter, citizen of the county and friend of the Salvation Army. So I'm on the advisory council. I just want to say that I'm involved again with the Army because Chris has made a commitment to be here. We saw a lot of turnover in that office. I spoke with Phoenix. I'm mindful of the importance of continuity. And the work that is going to be done and furthered with the Mental Health Wellness Resource Center is really vital. And we all know people who would benefit from a long-term rehab center. And I think collectively, the city, the county, the Army, we're lining up and thinking about how to make it sustainable. It's not a question about demand. It's about sustainability. And the spiritual component of that is a vital ingredient for successful outcomes. So affirm and thank you for your support of the Army. Second thing I wanted to share is something also energy related, and that's the fact that there is a hydrogen project that you saw in the newspaper. And there's a whole lot to that hydrogen project. And you're going to hear more about another hydrogen project later this week. But I want to say that Four Corners Economic Development, to whom I'm a consultant, has advanced an idea that has received support from the 3 secretaries of New Mexico that are on the Western Interstate Hydrogen Hub. The project is coming literally out of our heads. We don't have a lot of resource and dollars to make it work, but the ingredients are all there for a technically excellent project and a project that lifts the boat on all of our population. So you're going to hear more about this. We're going to be working and formulating some legislative ask. The firm of Burns and McDonald that did that work is exactly the kind of firm that we need some help from, somebody like that to give us some more firepower. But it is a wonderful partnership with an organization that the county helps fund, Four Corners Economic Development, and NAPI, who is a member of that organization. And I fully expect that we're going to see further advances on this, and it means sustainable jobs and educators being worked at San Juan College. And I'm excited about what's happened there, and we need to continue to regularly inform the commission on all of that. So with that, thank you, and I think I made it in 3 minutes. So
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, any others? We'll need to go into,
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we go into closed session to discuss threatened and pending litigation.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you.